This is the Auburn podcast. Zach Blackerby and Painter Sharpless here with you. And what's up, bud?
How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. I am good. Yeah, let's. It'll probably be a shorter one, but we wanted to put out one more podcast this week, and
this has been fun bringing this back. I know that your schedule was in flux and you were super busy, and it's that time of the year. I'm with everybody where it's like any football news.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Exciting.
Right. And so, yeah, we'll recap Auburn basketball's big win over Missouri in just a second. But you've got a little bit of football news.
Yeah, speaking of football, the Birmingham Iron, which represents, I guess, or is represented by a number of former college players. It's what is this? The AAF? Is that right? Alliance of American Football's Birmingham Iron.
People are actually excited about this league. I just anytime there's a new league, my expectations on it are so low. We'll see what happens.
I expect it to fail. It's kind of the way it goes because no league has ever been able to generate enough interest to really stick around. Here's the difference, I'll say, for this league, at least where we are in the country.
Yes.
The CFL, I don't know if I feel much of a connection to its players, which is interesting because there are obviously former college players. I mean, that's the abundance of the makeup of these guys that can't make it in the NFL but are still good football players.
Right.
But when you've got guys like Chris Davis, Ryan White, Avery Young.
Which speaking of Chris Davis, sorry for forgetting that he was a number 11 defensive back. But to be fair, earlier in our conversation, it was 2 podcasts ago. Thank you for listening and thank you for the response. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember Chris Davis being like a good defensive back. He was fine, but he's not a great defensive back.
Yeah, he was a number 1, and he actually had a short NFL career. So certainly, like you say, a good cornerback, a fine cornerback.
Right, but this guy's not Carlos Rogers.
But he's famous in sports and college. I think it's fair to say at least he's certainly famous in the Southeast because of a play.
Right.
Not because people were like, oh, that guy's the best corner in the conference.
And he's an FOP. He is a friend of the program.
Big if true. And it's true.
It is true.
We know it to be true.
I have proof of it.
We'll play it. No, we won't.
I'll do it.
Oh,
I'll do it.
We'll do it. Okay. But
Maybe.
I'm just saying there's a connection when you've got guys like Ryan White and Avery Young,
right?
Trevon Reed, Quan Bray, which interestingly you made the note when we were off air that he should be on an NFL roster.
Right, he should be, yeah.
And then Chris Davis. So there are 5 guys on the Birmingham Iron. I think it's nice, one, because it's local. You kind of rep your area, and the guys are still good enough athletes that it seems to me it could be entertaining.
Right.
I don't think that they're so far out of their prime it will be boring. Do you disagree?
I'll try it.
I'll try it, too.
I'll try anything once.
Everything in moderation, baby, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. There's people doing fantasy leagues and stuff, which is cool.
Oh, wow. They got that set up already?
Yeah. You want to do it? Let's join an AAF fantasy league.
Yeah, I'll do it with you. But your fantasy league gave me one more thing to worry about because I was like, you know what? I got my league that I've been in for a couple of years. That's going to be my competitive league. And then I'm going to have fun with Zach's league that you let me be in this year with some of our work friends and some other your friends from school. And then it just turned into me getting really, really angry when my team would lose. And I was like, all right, so much for me taking it easy.
You want to talk about basketball?
We should. We should talk about Auburn's second half, but we should also talk about Auburn's first half, which was not nearly as good as the second half.
Yeah, Auburn basketball last night, they had a great outing. Not going to lie, though. I was just so worn out. I passed out at 6:30. Or I passed out at 6, and Leah woke me up at 6:30, and so I could help her take the dogs out. And then I laid down at 6:45 and didn't wake up till my alarm went off this morning. And I'm checking my phone. I got a bunch of emails from the athletics department with press releases and all. I'm like, oh dang it! There was an Auburn basketball game last night, and they went off.
It was a good second half. The first half, if you watched, saw Auburn struggle in some areas. Ultimately the second half was all Auburn. Austin Wiley, of course, still out, and there's some questions about if he'll return this Saturday against Alabama. That's a team with length, so Auburn could certainly use Wiley for a number of reasons. On the whole, when Bruce Pearl was asked about shot selection, he thought for the most part his team shot well. There were a few he thought were taken too quickly. He didn't like the rebounding, particularly on the offensive side of the boards in the first half. But defense continues to plague the team to some extent. As you look at the score, 92 points, you can tell, okay, offense, sometimes it's not always the prettiest of possessions, but when you're getting nearly 100 points, however you get it, you get it.
Right, and it's like they had anytime you have a 50-point half, you're going to win that game if you're Auburn. And they had, is it 58-point second half? Is that right? Was it 58 points in the second half?
I'll have to look. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure
off the
I
top
read
of
that
my-
this morning,
off the
though.
top
I
of
mean,
my
that's
head.
that's exactly what you want if you're the Tigers. And you and I have talked about that in the past. I mean, Auburn has survived these close games, even games where they didn't play extremely well, whether they lost barely or they found a way to win, by having these spurts of like 2 or 3 minutes where everything goes right for them and they play like they're totally capable of. And you're not going to do that for a full 40 minutes. That's just not how basketball works. You're not guaranteed any kind of specific shot. But you look at what they did last night, specifically in the second half. I mean, I rewatched it this morning because it was on the SEC Network when I came into the studio. But, I mean, there was a 10-minute span where Auburn couldn't miss. And instead of having several 2 or 3 spurts where threes are falling and they're playing good defense, they had it for almost, a quarter of the basketball game. And that's what happens when Auburn's able to do that. I mean, they're able to string together a lot. So, yeah, they did have a 58-point second half. So 34 in the first half, 58 in the second half. Outscored Missouri 58-27 in the second half. You're going to win in every game you play if you do that.
Yeah, Auburn took 41 three-point attempts. They made 16. And you're right, the second half was dominant. I thought Samir Dowdy got things going for Auburn. Bryce Brown hit a couple of threes after that. And from there, like we've seen in other games this season, Auburn comes out of the second half, whether it's a close game or they're behind, and generally, I would say, dominates coming out of the gate at halftime. Also, one of the bright spots for Auburn, Chuma Okeke, a guy that I have been eager to see since last season and see what steps forward he's taken. And you see glimpses of it from time to time, but last night, without Austin Wiley on the floor, was certainly one of those nights. He had 14 points, 12 rebounds, shot efficiently, 5 of 8 from the field, 2 of 4 from deep. He added 4 assists. If he can have a similar line of productivity when Austin Wiley returns, this team is one of the best 3 teams in the SEC.
You think Chuma dedicated his performance to you last night?
I think that Chuma said, Painter, this one's for you. I think so.
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, 14 points from. I mean, he's a guy that you don't need 20 points for. But I think anytime he gets in double digits, it's putting Auburn in a good spot.
Those 12 rebounds, certainly, you'll take that as well.
Yeah,
and
double for sure.
Him and Anthony and even Horace have had to, in theory anyway, step up without Austin Wiley there. And there have been games in which they left you wanting more. And
Right.
This was an instance in which Chuma, I thought, played a very well-rounded game.
Anthony McLemore getting the start in Austin Wiley's absence. Anthony shot 7 threes. He made 2 of them. He should not ever take 7 threes in a basketball game. That should never, ever happen. Ever.
It's a lot of threes for him.
It's too many. Bryce shot 10. What do we do? And he shot more threes than Harper did last night. Why did that happen? Why is that something that happened last night? That's weird, right? You agree with me.
I would say
you're nodding. People can't hear you nodding, but you're agreeing with me.
I like him taking the occasional 3. I'm not as crazy about it as some people are. I think some people really like the idea of him doing that because it does force the defender to come out of the paint and it stretches the team a bit. But I'd prefer him to.
But you got to
limit
make them
those
though. You got to make more of them for that to be relevant. I think.
Certainly, I think to really feel like a threat, you've got to be more consistent, and then also. They play a different role, but to some extent, I would rather Chuma be the guy if there's someone taking that shot. Now, that's not to say we've seen Anthony hit some well-timed threes this season and especially last season.
Last year, yeah.
More so than this year. So I'm not going to say never, but I'm with you. Maybe a little bit, back off that just a little bit if you're Anthony. Then again, 92 points. That's, again, to my point, like Bruce Pearl admitted, there were some shots he didn't like. And some of them just didn't go. Auburn didn't have some of those shots fall, and there were 41 three-point attempts. And I think that's something that when you get Austin Wiley back, you hope not to need to take that many threes. It should, in theory, give you the ability to work it down low and get better looks when you do take threes from outside because of his inside presence.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I think we're in agreement on how they looked last night, and obviously they take on Alabama on Saturday, and we will have coverage immediately following the game, after the game, live from the bar at AT, the restaurant inside the Auburn Hotel and Conference Center. And after the game, it's presented by Kia of Auburn and Troy Bank and Trust. This will be a big one for the Tigers, no doubt about it.
I'm with you. This challenges Auburn, I think, because of the matchup against Alabama. And Auburn, I think, is the better team, but
right.
Alabama has beaten some teams like Mississippi State and Ole Miss that Auburn has lost to, and they almost beat Tennessee. Alabama, I think, has played up to their competition at times, but I also just think this is a team that struggled out the gates at the beginning of the season and has gotten better. They challenged Tennessee, they challenged Kentucky, and they beat Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So certainly Auburn could lose this game. I've been saying since last week I thought that Auburn would go on that skid because of the Kentucky loss that we watched at AT, and then having to travel to South Carolina and travel to Mississippi State were going to be tough. The matchup against South Carolina was especially a difficult one for Auburn. Now you're back home. You got a little momentum against Missouri. Same thing can be said in this game against Alabama. Again, I think they do give Auburn some trouble, but I like them to win that on Saturday. And then you got Florida, another winnable game at home. So Auburn can make up for some of the damage in that 3-game stretch, and then they go on the road to LSU. I think if you win these next 3 and can get a win in Baton Rouge over LSU, suddenly all that negativity that kind of I thought was too soon, the hanging on a cliff some Auburn fans felt like they were at, that eases you a bit.
It's like, when do you press the panic button? And I think a loss last night is when you press it, but now I think you can take the finger off the button a little bit.
Yeah, well, Missouri was 1-5 going into that game. They did have a winning record at 10-8 going into the game, but they just weren't a great team. And so at home, you definitely needed to win that one. I'm with you there.
Right. And I think if Auburn loses Saturday, I think you have the right to panic. As far as, okay, when's this team going to start playing? And I know if you want to be defensive about this team and kind of, glass half full, you can say, well, Wiley's gone. And that's fine. But as far as your chances of winning the SEC, I think are already gone. It's, okay, what are you doing to be better now and being your best version of yourself a month from now? I think that's all Auburn needs to focus on at this point.
Sure, you can certainly lean on one of your best players who makes others around him a more efficient team. Yeah, that's going to impact you. But your point's also relevant, Zach, that you've got to figure out a way to win some of these games. Because I still think even without Wiley, the talent and experience Auburn has is superior of that than most of the teams they're playing.
Right.
They just haven't won some of those games. Then they've been close. Like, to be fair, it's not like they're getting blown out. A shot against Kentucky going differently. The same thing can be said against South Carolina. Better, finish to the Mississippi State game. Your record's different.
The state game is the worst one, right? I mean, that's the one where it's just like, oh, they got handled.
Well, that and the Ole Miss game. Maybe the Ole Miss game worse than Mississippi State because it was close at halftime. It was close with 7 minutes to go against State, and then State was able to just really suck the life out of Auburn at the end.
Right.
So I'm still not down on this Auburn team. I think they need to be better defensively. Shot selection at times probably questionable, but if you're averaging about 85 points a game, you might just have to live with a few bad shots.
Right. All right, so not a super long show, but we got another one out there.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good stuff.
Cool. So we will be back probably Monday or Tuesday. I'm not going to promise that we will be back Monday or Tuesday, but we probably will be. So there's that.
In the words of Ellie Goulding, promises. I don't even think that was her. That might have been Skillrix.
I don't think it was.
How do you say that band's name?
I thought it was Skrillex.
You're right. I'm an idiot.
All right. This has been another edition of the Auburn Podcast.